Hello, welcome to Working Dragon Mystic, where we discuss real metaphysical and occult knowledge so that you can manifest real and tangible results in your life. This week, we're going to be continuing our Mage Minded series, and today we're actually going to be talking about mastering your thought, why it is so important in one's path, in magic in general, or in just your mundane life, and why, honestly, its importance is so high that really it's up there in the top tiers of the laws of magic, ain't it? So this one is actually going to be a pretty interesting one. So thought is usually defined as an act or process of thinking, reflection, meditation, the power of reasoning, imagination, attention, consideration, mental engrossment. Those are often ways that it is defined. And though that is the definition, very few people actually take the time to stop and think, what does it actually mean? Um, And over the years, like you all know, I've studied different philosophies, I've studied different religions, I've studied different occult texts, spiritualities, all these different things. Interestingly enough, regardless of which, you're going to find some area in there where where they're talking about the importance of what you think, right? They always start talking about thought. And over the years, I've gotten to realize that that isn't just coincidental. It's a very, very important thing, and there are reasons for it. And a good chunk of that is because they teach that our thoughts ultimately become our reality, don't they? Well, we as mages, we're in the business of doing magic and shaping our reality and manifesting. If all that starts at thought, if we don't master our thoughts, we really end up in a point where we can't actually begin to really master magic, much less ourselves. So again, if you're wanting to do magic, if you're wanting to hit that self-mastery point, mastering your thought is really a key component to it, no matter how you want to look at it. And it can really, if you don't have control of your thoughts, it can really affect your magic. We see it all the time here in the Working Dragon Mystic community where someone's doubt, someone's not being able to let go of a particular issue that they've done spell working on, someone who just the way that they view a problem actually can interfere with their magic, right? We actually had a question over the weekend about money bowls where I answered the question, but one of the things I added to that is I don't really use them. And the reason I don't is I know that when I look at a money bowl, I see money sitting there that is not working for me. It's not doing anything. That thought alone cancels out the magic entirely. So I don't use those. I use other forms of prosperity magic about knowing yourself and knowing your thought process, right? Um, all right. And I've often told people in the server and in my personal life, I don't listen to what people say. We even talked about it in the supporter live chat. I really don't care what people say, but I do observe their actions a lot. And I observe their action for the long term because honestly, when someone is trying to be fake or trying to put on a mask or trying to win you over, like they can do an act for a while. They really can. But if there's not a goal, if there's not a reward, if there's not some kind of boon, when it's just everyday boredom, that's when you start to see who they really are. How do they choose to live their life? What actions do they take if there's nothing in it for them? The reason I do that is it actually shows me how they think. And if I start seeing how they think, I start understanding who they really are, where their thoughts are, those kinds of things. And again, our thoughts will show our characters. So that's an important thing. And mastering our thought, it really does. Like when we went over the 28 laws of magic, we went over the law of attraction and how so many people can have an entire month, an absolutely positive month, and one bad day, and they throw the entire month out saying it don't work. They let their thoughts get the worst of them in that. And if you can start to control your thoughts, you can honestly, you start utilizing that law of attraction a bit more. But it goes more to just law of attraction. It literally is in every aspect of our life. All of us have had a bad day where we've let negative thought processes spiral and it just gets worse and worse and worse and starts feeding on itself. Where if you just take the time, and I know many of you in the community has done this because I've said similar, if you take the time, take a deep breath, take 10 and refocus, you can turn that entire day around and have a good day and just have a blip on the radar that was a little crappy. Um, but it's hard. That's easy to say, hard to do in practice, ain't it? Okay. One of my old mentors, Raven, she actually used the analogy of a garden. She told me my mind was like a garden, and the thoughts were the seeds that I plant in the garden, and they will grow. So, regardless of what it is I'm thinking about, that seed will grow. Okay. And they will take root, and I'm going to have to deal with the fruits of those thoughts at some point down the line, regardless of what it was. Okay. And it's because of that that mages, practitioners, we really should be doing daily meditations. We should be doing daily contemplation. We should really be thinking about the things we do, the things we spend our time thinking about. Where are our thoughts most of the time, right? Are our thoughts just wandering over with Bugs Bunny? Are our thoughts in a negative headspace, regardless of how much we smile outside? Are our thoughts constantly focused on what we don't have, being in a bad mood because I ain't got a Mercedes or something? Because if those are our thoughts, that's the thoughts we're planting, and that's what you're actually going to grow and harvest. Those aren't exactly the things you want to harvest, are they? I know I don't. Um, but you're going to have to. But as if we do our meditations, if we're working daily, if we're paying attention to our journaling as a practitioner, and we are working to be mindful of where our thoughts are, okay? Be mindful of where your thoughts are. Be mindful how you're using your thoughts. That actually can begin to change the whole book. Okay. Even when I'm relaxing, even when I'm doing something, I am still working to keep my thoughts in check, to keep my thoughts on the prize. I actually try to do very little thinking on pointless matters. Absolutely. I just avoid pointless thinking altogether whenever possible. Okay. And so hopefully, does that make sense to everyone so far? So, um, good, good. Now, one of the reasons it is important for us, for anyone, but especially mages, to start to focus our thoughts and pay attention to our thoughts. We're in the business of trying to manifest things, right? If your thoughts are literally planting the seeds of what you're going to reap in your life, your rogue thoughts, if you want to call them those, your random thoughts, the places where you spend most of your thought can actually cancel out all the spell work you ever do. Absolutely can destroy it. Because if you spend 60, 70, 80% of your time thinking about negative things, thinking about the things you don't have, thinking about how bad your life is, thinking about all this, with no thought of progression, no thought of a plan of action, no thought of where you're going to get there, all the prosperity you're doing just gets stamped back down. It can just get totally wrecked. So it is important that we master that. And really, there's so many people in my life that I've met that just, and I know it sounds stupid. I hate the fact that it sounds stupid though. Um, if you can just change how you're thinking, your life can turn around. I know it sounds like some freaking what are those motivational speaker people? They remind me of car salesmen, to be honest with you, but that's aside the point. But there's truth to it. Okay. They may sound like a used car salesman, but there is truth to what they're saying. And I've seen it in so many people. All they did was change their pattern of thinking and their lives turned around. Now, if it can do that for someone who doesn't do magic, imagine what getting control of our thoughts as a magician or a mage can do for us, right? That's why it is so important for a mage to master their thoughts, right? And before I take some questions on this, and we'll even talk about some things on, how to practice mastering your thoughts if y'all want. But I know I do a lot of quotes from Marcus Aurelius. What can I say? I love his book on meditations and stuff. I really do. But he had one that it stuck with me through the years. It really did. And it especially stuck with me when I started Dragon Magic because I'd heard his quote before and I had, like, Conway had her little dragon laws or whatever, which ironically the dragons have never really quoted to me. But um, there were two things in there that really lined up very well. And I've meditated on both over the years quite a bit. And I never got to ask Conway if she got this particular thing from Aurelius. I'm kind of suspect on that, not gonna lie. But I love this one. Um, yeah, here it is. The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. I love that one. Think about that. He is saying that the things you think about, the things you occupy your mind with, whether leisurely or what, they literally determine the quality of your mind. And your mind determines your soul. Like it affects your soul. So your thoughts are literally affecting your very essence of what and who you are. That's crazy, right? We usually think about it from a more outward perspective. And I agree, it does have an outward perspective, but it's coloring our reality at its very core of our essence, not just where we're living our life. And this is one of the reasons that, honestly, when it comes to escapism and the way people have applied a lot of things, Um, I I really am not a fan of escapism because of this reason. Now, there's a difference in relaxing and getting away from things for a little bit, and we have a real issue with a lot of people just completely detaching and just living in their own little world while complaining their life never gets any better. And you can disagree with me, you're free to disagree with me, but I truly believe that that detachment, that escapism, is because their thoughts aren't even remotely in line with where they're wanting to go. Instead of dealing with the things that are piling up, they just let them pile up and detach, and that eats away at them at their very core. And anyone who's ever struggled with extreme like depression of any kind, whether it's you're going through a hard time, whether it's clinical, you know what it's like when I say your thoughts can get away with you. And yes, it is true. You can grab a hold of your thoughts and you can rest them to the ground and get a hold of it. But that doesn't make it easy. And just because you can do it doesn't make it easy. Okay? It is hard. I've been doing this stuff for years and I still have to stop, remind myself, and work at it. It's an ongoing process that we will always be working on in our lives, right? But one of the first things you can do is work on your meditation. Seriously, work on your meditations. Because in your meditation, one of the reasons meditation helps so much is either A, you're doing a focused meditation where you're focusing on a specific thing, and any random thing that pops up, you're saying, get out of here, and you stay focused, right? Something else pops up, get out of here. Something else pops up, get out of here. Something else pops up, get out of here. Um, it helps you to control, to get that focus, to lock your mind onto the thing you are doing, right? Okay, that skill set can easily start to be applied through your day. If you're having a bad day, if you've just had an argument with somebody, you can easily set that aside and focus on your task, right? Now, I do this a lot when I'm working. There's plenty of times when plenty of people will upset me, piss me off, or whatever. I can't dwell on that. It's not going to do me any good to dwell on that. There are people who feed on drama, okay? And drama does not yield anything except more drama. So we can't really avoid drama in life. There's going to be plenty of drama, but we cannot dwell on it easily. You can just like toss it to the side and focus on what you're doing. And as practitioners, we should have goals. We just did an entire workshop about magical life planning and manifestation, right? Keep your mind focused on that. What are your goals in life? Are you trying to find a new job? Are you trying to get through school? Are you trying to work on your career? Keep your thoughts in the positive lanes of the goals that you're wanting to achieve. Are you working on your arcane senses? What are you doing? If you have a brainless job and you're just sitting there mindlessly. Work on your arcane senses while you do it. There's plenty of people who do it. I know I got friends in landscaping. They will work on their arcane senses and other things while at work doing landscaping because the muscle memory to get through the day is there. So they're at work. They utilize their work time to train for this. And it also helps them get through their day because they're doing something productive that they enjoy as opposed to complaining about the heat, the humidity, and all these other things that they got to deal with. Okay? So meditation is going to be your number one thing. You want to start working on your meditation. I say it all the time, meditation is foundational to all magical practices. If you don't have a strong meditation skill and practice, everything else is pointless. I'm not I, I believe that to my core. I've seen it time and time again. So if you don't like meditation, magic ain't for you. Um, Secondly, once you are building that, you got your meditation practice, whether it's strong or you're just starting, start actively paying attention to your thoughts. Be mindful all the time of your thoughts. Don't let them just wander. Don't just let them run off onto Bugs Bunny Land or Anime Land or Kingdom Hearts Land or whatever video game kids are playing these days. Don't let it. Stay focused. Stay focused on what you're doing. Even if you're watching something, pay attention to what you're watching. Think about what you're watching. What lessons are there? What mistakes are made? And yes, you can even do this if you like anime. I'm not saying you can't watch anime. God, no, I'm not saying that. I like a lot of different things. I like The Sopranos. I like Seinfeld, Parks and Rec. There's plenty of shit I will watch over and over and over. But there is stuff you can sit there and think about the situations and put yourself in the situation and ask, how would you handle it seriously? Not comically, how would you handle it seriously? How would you deal with this scenario? And that can be uncomfortable in a few scenarios. That really can. But at the same time, it's getting your brain to think through that scenario. It's putting yourself in that scenario. So it's running a mental exercise that is a good thing. Yep, you can do it with Golden Girls, absolutely. Um, any TV show you can do this with, right? So, me and my wife, we actually enjoy stuff like Chopped or, some of those cooking things. When I married her, she couldn't cook. Let's be honest with you. I was the cook. And her and I will constantly run through the exercise. What would you do with this box of ingredients? And honestly, it's one of those things where there's ingredients you've never heard of and you're trying to figure it out. That mental exercise can actually help you develop better. It's actually helped me as a cook because it's actually forced me to flex muscles instead of just making the same recipes that my friends and family love over and over and over, right? And some of the times, like I'm formulating what I would do with my skill set and everything. And there's been plenty of times where not only did I formulate what I would do, but then I did wander off to create a dish to see if I could actually make it a reality too. And you can do this with anything that you do, but it's about keeping your thoughts in control. You all know I love to run my smoker. I love to barbecue. I don't just turn the smoker on and run in and play a video game. I actually spend time tending the fire. I do the old school wood smoker. I will never own a pellet smoker. I don't think I will ever own one because I enjoy the time I spend tending the fire. I use that as a meditative time to think. I'm accomplishing something, I'm feeding my family, and I do the same thing like this weekend. I spent a lot of time rendering tallow, plenty of time to sit, think, and enjoy. No matter what you're doing, whether you're driving to work, you're at work, doesn't matter. You can take focus and take hold of your thoughts and focus them and tinker with them. Okay. Now, different people's going to do it differently. And by the way, if you got some questions, go ahead and start dropping them on this. But every one of us can do this a little differently. Me, I am a little OCD in the fact that when I have a goal, I'm very, very, very hyper focused on any goal. So at any given point of the day, any of my goals are being thought about and re-examined from multiple angles on how to achieve a goal. I spend a lot of I honestly can't think of a time that working Dragon Mystic itself isn't on my brain somewhere around there. I'm usually got several lines of thought happening at once, to be honest. And the thing I'm focused on is just the thing. pull to the front. Um, Not everybody's that obsessive, right? And I'm also that person when I'm relaxing, I'm usually thinking about work because I don't know, there's something enjoyable about progression and progress to me. It's very rewarding. I do know that progress and progression is rewarding to every human brain, but some people don't like to dwell on it as much as I do, right? You don't have to dwell on it as much as I do, right? You can do plenty of things. You can take days off. But where is 90% of your thought? Always ask yourself. In fact, when you get your journal out and you go to write down in your journal, ask yourself today, where was 80% or 90% of your thought? Right? I like the 90% rule, but I've had mentors say 70, 80, right? I'm an overachiever. We know that. Um, and if 80% of your thought is in wasteful nonsense that really isn't going to help you produce anything in your life that's going to be helpful, well, that's not going to necessarily be bad, but it's not necessarily good, right? It's not helping, right? If 80% of your thought is in a negative headspace, that's not good. There's no way around that. That's not good. Um, you need to try and get your thought processes out of that for damn sure. Um, and if you try and try and try and you cannot get out negative, you might want to see a psychiatrist, seek some medical help. Maybe there is something there more than just you dwelling on the negative, you know? That's always a possibility. No shame in that at all. All right. But it is vitally important that we do this because, for example, we're getting ready to start a prosperity project for the supporters um, over at the Working Dragon Mystic community in August, right? It's going to be a 3 month project. I'm going to break it into three parts for them. It's going to be a lot of fun. But prosperity magic, you can do all the prosperity magic you want. If you constantly dwell on how poor you are and how your life sucks because you ain't got money, that's not going to help the magic work. That's actually going to do the opposite. That's going to help keep you in that headspace, right? And that's the last thing I want to do is see anyone stay stuck in life. So, um, definitely over the next few weeks, put this into action. Start doing your meditations more. Be mindful about those meditations. But I think the key one that most people miss is being mindful of what they think about during the day, right? They really aren't mindful about what they think about during the day. And honestly, this is one I know a lot of people, they massively cut down their alcohol consumption or other consumptions because if you're inebriated, your thoughts are not yours. They're going to drift around. So they would taper that back. I'm not saying they gave up alcohol and stuff, but they would taper it back so that they weren't blitzed the way they would usually get. Um, and I'm not saying you are or you're not, but consider, how you're spending your time, what you're doing with your time, how you're living. Are you are you the master of your thoughts? Yes or no? Did you lose control of your thoughts? Ask yourself those questions every day. If you did, look at the situation and ask yourself, how can I handle that better? What could I have done with my thoughts? How could I have handled it better? Anytime we blow up emotionally, we lost control of our thoughts. Because if you can control your thoughts, if you can stay in control of your thoughts and you're mastering your thoughts, you can actually respond to everything thoughtfully, right? You can think it through instead of reacting emotionally. Now, that's not to say we're trying to turn emotions off and get rid of them. That's not what I'm saying. Derek didn't say that. But we want to be able to respond thoughtfully, not snap or react emotionally. Okay? Let's see. Anybody got any questions in here before we hop off here? Let's see if there's any back here. Speaker. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Yes, motivational speakers really do. They really do. They feel like used car salesmen. I'm not saying motivational speakers are bad, though there are a few of them that are scammy. I'm just going to be honest, but there's a lot of them that actually do a lot of good to help. Matthias, he already does that with shows. That's good. That's good. Put some thought into it. Don't just tune out when you turn on the TV. My grandfather actually used to call TV the ignorant box because people would just turn it on and tune out. They wasn't doing any thinking. Um, let's see, Jackie, I'll be in my head thinking about something sad and stressful, and then I'll go, wait. Yep, yep, you gotta jerk yourself out of it. All right. So no questions on this just yet. All right, we'll go ahead and cut it here. Hey, if you're watching this on Rumble or on YouTube, check us out over at Mighty Networks at the Working Dragon Mystic Community. You can find the links down below here. In fact, you can join us for these topics live. Once we cut the recording, we usually hang out and discuss the topics more. I got several people over here waiting already, as you've probably saw me reading a few of these. And if you want to support the channel and the work we do, you can also become a supporter over at the Mighty Networks. We have an entirely free section, just so you know. But the supporter section, we do have supporter only chats, calls where honestly, in those chats, you can ask me anything that's on your mind and we will try to answer it. Um, there's a week or two where they started getting me to try and swap recipes with them. It's been fun. But there's also times we've hit some very deep and serious metaphysical discussions, which I have absolutely adored. And of course, the supporters also get full access to our online school and all of our live workshops, absolutely free as part of their support. And that's all for just $10 a month. All right. Till next time, everybody, you take care. See you later.